Another capability that contributes to personal transformation is that of self-discipline. Achievements in any field of endeavor require self-discipline. If we want to excel in sports, we need to practice daily, follow a certain diet, get enough sleep, and avoid alcoholic drinks. If we want to excel in our studies or in a profession, we need to read, reflect, and often write. If we want to develop transformative leadership, we need to make an effort to develop new capabilities and to contribute to social transformation. In any of these fields, we need to devote time and effort in order to achieve our goals. We also need to avoid what can have a damaging effect. In doing this, we need to exercise our free will. We can either choose lofty goals that benefit humanity, or we can allow ourselves to be carried away by selfish desires. Often people confuse pleasure and happiness. They have the idea that the satisfaction of our physical appetites and the accumulation of material possessions is the source of happiness. However, we need to distinguish between the temporary pleasure that this satisfaction brings and the deep, long-lasting happiness that comes from disciplining ourselves to turn toward our higher nature. Furthermore, there are limits to physical pleasure. After a certain point, a person becomes satiated and no longer derives as much pleasure from the activity. Or, as happens in the case of addictions, he needs ever greater and more frequent doses to experience an ever more fleeting sensation of pleasure. In contrast, the repetition of spiritual practices only deepens our happiness. So in short, there are two paths. Each one has an easy part and a difficult part. If we give in to our desires, it is easy at first, but this often leads to problems in our lives, and it becomes difficult. Or we can decide to exercise self-discipline, which we may find difficult at first until it becomes a habit. Then it becomes easy, and we reap its rewards in a more satisfying life. There are several ways in which we can strengthen our self-discipline. If we have a clear vision of what we want to achieve, we will be motivated to do whatever is necessary. If we know that certain situations lead us into temptation, we can decide to avoid them. Or if they are impossible to avoid, we can decide beforehand what we want to do when we are in that situation, basing our decisions on an exercise of our will rather than our momentary impulses. We also need to practice humility, not thinking that from here on in it's going to be easy. Stephen Covey explains that there are 3 levels of self-discipline. The first and most obvious is controlling and guiding the appropriate expression of our bodily appetites. The second is to quell our tendencies towards pride and the desire to impress others. And the third is to resist the ambition of power over others. Covey also recommends that we develop daily practices of self-discipline in 4 different areas. First, physically, by keeping our body in shape. Then, intellectually, by engaging in a process of continual learning. Emotionally, by cultivating patience, empathy, and personal responsibility. And spiritually, by developing a daily habit of prayer and meditation. These same practices lead to happiness. Studies on happiness recommend that in order to feel happier, we can engage in actions to improve in any of the following areas: spiritual, physical, intellectual, relationships, or emotional. Dr. Tal Ben-Shahar summarizes these areas in the acronym SPIRE. As you can see, they are the same areas that we mentioned previously, adding the all-important area of relationships. The greater the self-discipline that we cultivate in these important areas of our lives, the more we will achieve and the happier we will be.